I'll tell you the story, no one else will. I'll tell it, because I lived it. I was there. I'd say that makes me qualified, wouldn't you? The truth is that there are things out there in the world that we don't understand. Some of them we never will, but some of them we do understand. Some of them we've seen up close and personal. Some we've captured. Others we're protecting. That's what this story is about, you see. The protection of these things and how I became a part of it. I wish I could say I was a part of the BFRO or the Cryptid Research Organization. If I listed an organization like that, you'd know to dismiss me. You'd have enough of a reason to doubt. I worked for a government agency with a storied and legitimate history. I won't name them outright, because then my name would be as good as known. But I will confirm that it was one of the big ones. When I started there, my responsibilities were menial. I was slow to move up the ladder, but I had my aspirations. When a new operation was being put together, I jumped at the chance. I shouldn't have. I should have left the mysterious corners of the world untouched. I became part of something terrible. Our job was follow-up. Reports would come in detailing strange encounters. We would verify the legitimacy of these claims, and then we would enter the field. We hunted these things. Understand? We detained the ones we could. We buried all of them, kept them quiet. I'm not sure why it's been decided that the world isn't ready to know the truth. The world isn't ready to know what's real. For us, we were just doing our jobs. It made us feel important. We were fools. It was our 5th time out in the field. Most of our investigations had ended quietly. There was one incident where we had detained a specimen, but it was resolved without any violence or tragedy. We didn't get so lucky that 5th time. There were numerous reports of a dog-like creature prowling the rural countryside. Livestock had been affected. One man went missing, although he'd turn up later without a scratch on him. Regardless, it was enough to get our interest. We went to investigate. We set up a few monitoring positions throughout the area, with 2 team members stationed at each point. And sure enough, we found it. Or it found us. My partner and I caught movement on one of our thermal cameras and went to pursue the fleeing hotspot. We coordinated with the others, planned to surround the thing. We hadn't seen it in person yet, but the marker on our cameras was large enough for us to know that it wasn't a deer or a fox. It seemed more intimidated by us than we were of it. Why else would it be running? The more I recount this story, the more I realize how many of the bad parts were due to our egos. Why would nature fear us? The thing turned. We heard a roar first, like a guttural howl, long and bone-chilling. The sound was enough to halt our chase. I remember looking briefly to my partner. In our 4 previous experiences, we had never heard anything like that. We were armed with everything we needed to sedate the creature, of course, but that didn't mean we were ready. Suddenly, its dark shape came sprinting over the horizon. It was big enough to rival the size of a bear. It was fast enough for both of us to realize that running wouldn't save us. It was so dark that we could only see the beast when the light caught its eyes and its teeth. The rest of the furry mass only moved like a shadow. Our only chance was to shoot the dark and hope something hit. We both missed. The sedatives whistled through the night air. The monster snarled. Then it crashed into my companion. They screamed. I turned as quickly as I could, trying to follow the dark blur of their body, caught in the jaws of the beast. The witnesses had been right. It was a wolf. Its posture was a little bizarre, as if it could have stood up on its hind legs at any moment. But otherwise, I fired again, praying that I would hit the animal and not the person it was quickly dragging away. I heard my partner yell again, "You got it." I counted in my head. It wouldn't take long for the animal to go down. Suddenly, a few pairs of flashlights started bobbing around us. The team had arrived, with their lights shining directly on the creature. There was no denying what it was. Some giant abomination, halfway between human and hound. We detained it successfully, I guess. The organization paid for my partner's medical bills. The problems began when I asked for more. I asked for answers. It was clear to me that these things were dangerous. The animal easily could have attacked a civilian instead of our team. What would we have done then? Maybe I was compelled by the memory of my friend being hurt by that beast. I don't know. I could have stopped. I pushed instead. I argued that the people had a right to know. If anyone's lives could be in danger, they should be warned, not misled. My superiors disagreed. They said people couldn't handle it. Maybe they were right. My job got menial again. Then it ended. When it did, I started talking. I started telling the story, the one no one wants told and no one wants to hear. I can count the people who have believed me on just one hand. That's the truth of it. The monsters you're afraid of, they're out there. They're being protected by the very people you would expect to have your back. The next time you see something, be careful who you call. Not everyone values your life. I'll keep this as clear as I can. My thoughts sometimes bleed together. I haven't been sleeping much. I haven't been sleeping at all. I can't keep it away, not for long. It always comes back. It used to give me breaks. I suspect now that it was just to torment me. Give me just enough room to think I can breathe again. Then it would come back and tighten its grip. I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. Like I said, I haven't been sleeping. Keeping everything in order, start to end, is a little harder now than it used to be. I know everything began a year ago. The same holiday that marked the beginning of all of this recently passed again. It's been a year. I think just one. I own my own home. 2 bedrooms, a laundry room, 1 bathroom. It's nothing fancy. Just 1 floor. It's enough for me and my cat. I used to think about family. I used to think about growing beyond just my one lonely person. I don't think about that anymore. 1 year ago, the laundry room. My washer and dryer aren't exactly brand new, but when I heard a knocking coming from the interior of the machine, I knew something was wrong, like a hammer striking aluminum. I hadn't turned it on. I hadn't forgotten about a load of laundry. I thought maybe it was the cat trapped itself inside somehow. I nearly had a heart attack just at the thought. As terrible as it sounds, that almost would have been preferable. At least then I could have opened the lid, let the little guy run out, and been done with it. Instead, I opened the machine and found nothing. Empty. A hollow white void. That was odd, I thought. I closed the lid and waited. Nothing happened. The knocking didn't come back either. Like nails on a chalkboard, long and irritating, spikes being driven into my eardrums. It was coming from the laundry room again. I searched it. Nothing. Before I got in there, I could have sworn something was clawing at the outside of the appliances. The moment I got eyes on the interior of the room, though, it stopped. That time, the silence wasn't enough to dissuade me. The sound had crept into me somehow. I knew that they were there. I knew that something was making them. I became more adamant. I was constantly on alert, waiting for the next chance to discover the invisible culprit. Alert is not a good way to live in your own home. I'll tell you that. It's the reason I stopped sleeping. Every little bump in the night, the groaning of the floorboards and the pipes, became another excuse for me to jump out of bed and start looking. I didn't find it. I didn't see it until it wanted to be seen. The sounds hadn't stopped. They spread beyond the laundry room. I was hearing rapping on the walls, stomping on the floors. Most of them were real. Some of them, I'm sure I imagined. But it got to the point I could no longer stay awake. I wasn't performing at work anymore. I didn't have energy for my friends. A deep, necessary sleep came for me one night. It came for me and ruined everything. It made me vulnerable. I was no longer the watcher, standing at attention, waiting to catch the strange thing making noises in my home. I was the one being watched. And when I woke up to the bed frame jerking suddenly to one side, I saw it, standing at the foot of my bed. Long, claw-like fingers dragged across the curvature of the iron frame. The metal screamed under its fingernails. I screamed under my sheets. It had to bend over to keep from hitting its head on my ceiling. It was long and thin, like its body had been stretched out over time, like it stretched and slithered until it finally broke through, right into my home. I turned and reached for the bedside lamp. It wouldn't help. I just wanted light. It made me feel safer. When I turned on it and looked back toward the creature, it was gone. No one else was standing in my room, but the iron bed frame was scarred, where I'd seen the monster place its hands. Had it forgotten to conceal itself? Could I only see it in that dreamlike state, between sleep and consciousness? I never learned the answers to those questions. I've been asking them for a while, and no one wants to help me find the truth. I've been medicated. I've been hospitalized. Nothing has woke me up, wiped the fog from my eyes, and shown me that my encounters were imaginary. It's still real, and the creature is still here. I can help but sleep sometimes. I can only manufacture insomnia for so long, and when I do sleep, I see it. I see it when I wake up. At first, it was standing at the foot of my bed. Then it was leaning forward, with its palms on my mattress. Then it started climbing up. Each time I saw it, the monster was a little closer. The next time I sleep, I know its tiny dark eyes will be blinking down at me from directly overhead. I'll feel its breath on my cheek. I'll feel its claws on my chest. It still leaves marks, you know. It's cut the bed frame. It's turned my blankets to ribbons. I can only imagine what will happen to me when it's my flesh supporting the monster's weight. That's about all I imagine these days. The fear is past, I think. I think I've given up on finding help. I've given up on finding someone who believes. I just want to get this message out while I still can. When you hear the creatures knocking, don't go look. Sometimes that thing going bump in the night is better left undiscovered. I saved a man's life once. That's a good way to start a story, huh? I think so. It always gets a few heads to turn. Truthfully, I wish I'd saved more than one. For as long as I worked in the park service, you'd think more opportunities would have presented themselves. Lucky for me, I didn't join up to be a hero. It just so happened, that day, I was in the right place, at the right time. I saved a man's life, and then I got called a liar. The day started real typical. It was just another shift, you know? Another walk through the park in the Pacific Northwest. I don't remember what I was looking for, at least not originally. The details of that morning have mostly faded away. The afternoon was too memorable for the rest of the day to stick around. A call came in over the radio. One of the towers was reporting smoke. There were no campsites in the area, so someone needed to investigate. We needed to get the situation under control before it had the chance to spread. I was the closest, so I headed that way. Backup would be behind me, just in case. I wasn't equipped to fight a forest fire, but I could at least provide eyes on the ground. Later, I found myself wishing that it was just a fire that I came across. There were some flames, of course, Someone had wrapped a jacket around a fallen branch and lit it ablaze. It had been tossed or dropped, I'm not sure which, and it was burning through the brush by the time I arrived. As I was reporting what I found, the someone responsible came into view. They came running. They came screaming. I shifted my weight, felt like I was under attack. But the stranger wasn't coming to harm me. They were warning me. They were yelling and waving their arms, urging me out of the area. The closer they got, the more I saw. They were beaten and battered. Something had attacked them. I asked if it was a bear. They didn't answer. I thought maybe another man then. Maybe a pair of hikers had gotten into an altercation and one of them had spiraled off the deep end. I couldn't have been further from the truth. When they reached me, the hiker all but collapsed into my arms. They were sobbing. I guess they thought they failed. I was still standing there after all. Then came the roar. Something called out to us behind the growing wall of fire and smoke. It roared deeply and made me tremble in my boots. It sounded like something from the TV. I thought of the cup of water in that dinosaur movie. I was shaking like that little glass. Trouble was coming. I lifted the hiker back to their feet and told them to run. I pointed in the direction help would be coming and trusted that they would make it. They did, but saving a life doesn't come cheap. I watched them run, disappearing into the trees, then looked back at the fire. There was a silhouette on the other side, a massive, lumbering shape that stood perfectly still despite the heat. It was head and shoulders above the flames, which were already high enough to cover my body. What eyes glistened in the firelight. The orange glow illuminated an ape-like face. I don't know what it was. Not really. That still hasn't been answered, but I know it leapt through that fire like it wasn't there at all. It reeked of wet soil and burnt hair. The smell made my lungs tighten even more than the smoke itself. I had no choice but to breathe it in. The creature was upon me right away. It moved so fast that I could hardly believe it. I was on the ground before I understood what was happening. My eyes were rolling in my head. The pain didn't start for a few more moments. I was too stunned to realize I was hurt, I guess. Then came the ache, up my spine and into the base of my skull. There was a hot, wet trickle on my forehead. I knew it right away to be blood. I tried to stand, but couldn't. I couldn't climb back upright to fight the beast. I had a baton and a can of bear spray on me. I stumbled to one knee and tried the spray. The creature flinched, but didn't flee. It only paused as it circled me to check the spread of the fire. It knew we didn't have a lot of time. I swung my baton wildly, yelling incomprehensible words while I obsessed over the thought of that hiker. At least they'd gotten away, I told myself. At least it was just me out there. The animals were locked on me. I could see that it meant to attack again. Then we heard the rest of them, my backup, the rangers and the firefighters both, shouting and stomping through the woods. I watched those violent eyes soften, approach something that looked like fear, and finally, the monster ran, back through the fire, back into the woods. The details fade again after that. I only remember waking up in the hospital, being told that I didn't see a thing, that I got caught in the fire and pinned below the foliage. You get told that enough times, I guess you believe it. I did for a while. But I couldn't forget that hiker. They weren't running from the flames. They started that fire just to slow the monster down. There must have been proof, right? Witness testimony from the person I found out there. By the time I was released from the hospital's care, none of it existed. I never learned their name. We never talked about what happened. And no one ever acknowledged the thing that I saw. But I did save someone's life.